This conference will now be recorded.
Right. So firstly, any questions for me before we get started? Anyone, any questions that I can take before we can get started? Okay. 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 Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you show me the error? Did you give the URL out here? Okay. Let's check that out. So you're connecting to a container and then okay. Just record a video and send it across to me on what is the error that you're getting so that I can kind of identify that. Yes, any more questions, guys? Okay, and Storage Explorer, okay. Uh, can you figure out who will delete it? No, you cannot do that. Reason being, you are not giving permissions to a particular user. You are giving access to a particular key, and you do not know who's using that key. So you can give that key to anyone, they can start using it, they'll delete it or they'll upload, not in your control. Reason being, we do not, let's say, really share, let's say, shared access signature with a full permission until and unless we know whom we are sending the key out to and etc. So yes, we don't really do that until and unless we know for sure that that particular person is someone that you know, is someone that's there inside your organization, etc. So let's get started here. Again, let me put this diagram back. Let us get our storage account right now. I'm ignoring the resource group. Resource group is there by default. And inside this, you have a container. And yesterday we were doing access levels at, yes, we were doing access levels out here. So let's go ahead and put the container out here and also put a blob inside the container. So there are multiple blobs inside the container. And this is what we were telling is that you can go ahead, generate something known as the SAS at a blob level. You can generate the shared access signature at a blob level. You can also do it at a container level. And if I do it at a container level, you will need a software called Microsoft Storage Explorer to access that particular container and all the data inside the container. And you can again have multiple keys. You can connect to that particular container, etc. Now I was telling, what if there are thousands of containers inside your storage account and you want to access everything? So now we were telling you can also generate something known as a shared access signature on the storage account level. I think this is where you're getting the error while doing the storage account and etc. So let's also see that. So let's come here at the storage level also. So let me erase this out. Let's come down to the storage account. So this is our storage account that we were working with yesterday. I'll just scroll down and there is something called shared access signature. If I go inside a container, let me go inside a container, and in the container as well, we have something called shared access token. Inside a blob also, we have something called generate SAS. Both, all the three things are the same. They talk about the same thing, but it's just at which level that you're generating it. If you're generating at a container level, you'll have access to all the blobs. If you're generating at a storage account level, you'll have access to all the containers. So let's put that in. So let's go to the storage account. So it's very important to understand where we are, at which level we are. Right now we are at the storage account level. So let's go here into shared access signature of the storage account. Let's see. Now I want to access the blob account, not file queues and etc. I'll just put all these things, allow service, container, and object. I'll just put these three things out here. Then now I have the permission list telling, do I want to read, do I want to write, do I want to delete, list, add, and etc. I will remove the permanent delete. There is something called immutable storage. We'll talk about that. I'll remove this out. I'll say I don't want write, I don't want delete. I just want read and list. These are the two things that I would need. I'll just scroll down, and now it's asking me for the time period. I'm saying, okay, this is the time period that I need. And I'll say generate SAS and connection strings. The two things that you get. Now, when you created the same thing at a container level, you got two things. One is called the key, the other is called the URL. Here you got one more additional thing called connection string out here. Let's also see what is that. So I'll go into my Microsoft Storage Explorer and let's open up this particular piece of software and let's connect to our storage account as such. So right now, let's check out firstly. If I click on this one, I already have a storage account, which is a very old one. What I'll do firstly is that to avoid confusion, I'll just click on this and I'll detach this out. Okay. Let me detach this one, which is a little sticky. Okay, fine. Let me come back to that. Firstly, let me, yes. I'll detach this account. I don't need this one. It was a very old account, not even existing right now. So I'll click on this one. I'll say open connection dialog. Now I would say connect to a storage account or a service. Here it's asking me three different types. Either you can give something called as a shared access URL. I can get that shared access URL from here. Or you can connect it by using a connection string. Same thing, this one. A connection string or account name and the key. We'll also talk about what is the account name and the key, how will you get that, and etc. So in this case, either one of the methods will work. You can take this one called the shared access signature URL or the connection string. Anything is okay. Let's copy the connection string here. I'll choose the option called connection string. I'll say next. I'll place the connection string in here. Right, so it's saying the connection has file endpoint and etc. Does not have access to all that stuff. Let me do one thing. Let me go back and let me regenerate this one completely because now I'm trying to connect to the entire service out here. Let's go there. Since I need to connect to the entire storage account, I probably need to give all these permissions out here called files and queues and tables and etc. And I'll just do this one. I'll remove all these processes again. I just need to, let's say, enable this so that I can connect to the entire storage account because all these are the services inside the storage account out here. Let me generate a new one, and now I have individual URLs for all these things out. So let me go here, copy the connection string, come back again, click on storage account or a service. Now I do not get the error, so you just have to, let's say, put the right combination in here. And it's also telling what is the name of your storage account. So I have the name of the storage account. I'll say next. And now it's telling, okay, fine, you have this one, these permissions. It's read, list, tag, filter, delete versions, and etc. These are by default which will come. So are you okay with this? I'll say yes, I'm okay. I'll just connect to this one. So now it's telling you are connected to that particular demo storage account using a SAS. It's a shared access signature. And here there's something called blob containers, file shares, queues, and tables. Same thing that you see on the Azure portal. Containers, file shares, queues, and tables. So you have access to all these things, but I'm specifically interested into something known as a blob container. And if I click on this one, it's telling there are two containers right now, which is logs and test container. Now let's say if someone creates a container, let's say test container one. As in when someone creates this out, if I just refresh this, I am also able to see the container in a real time. So it'll just take fractions of seconds to also reflect that here. You just have to sometimes refresh it. And once you come inside the container, you're able to see all these blobs that are there in the container as such. So now using the shared access signature that is generated at a storage account level, you will not only be able to manage all the blobs within a container, you will also be able to manage all the containers within a storage account. So if there are thousands of containers out here, it's easy for you to, let's say, move the files between containers, copy it, delete it, or download this, upload it, and all these things, provided you have the right set of permissions out here and as such. See, there is one more way to connect to it. Apart from shared access signatures, Azure also gives you something called as access keys. Yes, please go ahead. Can you please come again? Okay. Blob access and container access. Okay. What is the difference between blob access and container access? If you give a container access, you will be able to see all the blobs inside a container. If you give a blob access, you'll only be able to see that particular blob, one blob. That's only those pictures over, let's say, that particular URL. You'll only be able to see that, let's say, images over the URL. But if you are giving access at a container, you'll be able to see all the blobs that are there inside the container over your Microsoft Storage Explorer out here. But when you give access to the storage account, you will be able to see all the containers and all the blobs inside the containers out there. Yes. So as I was telling, there is one more thing what Azure gives you called access keys. Let's go there. Let's come here and let's come here again. And now it's telling, okay, fine, these are all the keys and etc. So I'll click on show, click on show. There are two keys, key 1 and key 2. And you have the storage account name and you can copy the key. So I'll copy this key out here. I'll go back into my storage explorer. Now the same storage account I'll connect using a key. Let's understand what is the primary difference. You all tell me what is the primary difference out here. I'll click on the connection dialog again and I'll go into storage account again. This time around I'll give what? Account name and key. Because I've copied the key, I'll say next. I will say firstly put the key in, then I'll go ahead get the account name. And here you have a display name. Display name can be anything. You can give anything out here. It's just for your convention. I'll say this is key, hyphen key. I'm connecting using a key out here. Then it's telling what is the storage domain. Does it belong to core.windows.net or does it belong to core.chinacloud.cn? Not really. I'm not on a China cloud. Is it a US government cloud? Core.usgovernmentapi.net? No. It's a core.windows.net. It's an Azure cloud that I want to connect to. I'll say next and I'll say connect. Let's see. The very first thing is by using a SAS. The second thing, same thing again, nothing really different out here, but I am using a key to connect. So there is a SAS firstly that I connected with, then I connected then I connected to the same storage account using a key. Now tell me guys, on a very primary level, what are the differences that you observed when I generated a key versus when I generated a SAS?
Yes,
What do
as
you think is the
they
primary
have
difference?
a timing.
I'm sorry, can you please be a little loud? I'm not able to hear you.
SAS has a timing function, right?
SAS has a timing, good observation. Yes, SAS has a time. Key doesn't have a time. Yes, I do not, let's say, mention anything. Is it only time? Anything else? Uh, Key 1, key 2. Yes, we had two keys out here. Again, when you generate a SAS also, you have the option to either generate key 1, key 2. So either key 1 and key 2, you can generate this out. Yes, any other differences? Privilege. Yes, what about privilege? Where can I give read write permission? In a SAS. In access keys, no privileges. Meaning access keys are like admin keys. So if you want to share admin privilege to your storage account to someone, like your project manager or something, you would share across an access key out here. Access keys do not let you tell what is the expiration. Access keys do not have an expiration at all. That doesn't come with an expiration. Neither you can tell what kind of a permission will someone have. Access keys will give you all the permissions to your storage account without you telling it. So it's just like generating a shared access signature with all the permissions inside with it. Generating a shared access signature with all the permissions and without the time is what access key really becomes, which means I can literally come here with using the access key. I can click on a container and delete the entire container out here. Still will work. It'll still work. It deleted the entire container. And if I go back into, let's say the containers out here, there's no containers as such. Again, if you want to recover it, show deleted containers. You have a deleted container. Just go to the extreme right, click on this, and delete. Provided you have soft delete enabled. This is very important. You should have soft delete enabled prior to you deleting this container. In my case, I did have a soft delete enabled. So if I go into data protection, soft delete enabled for containers, yes, 7 days. So until the next 6 days, I will be able to go ahead and recover my container back again. So if I recover my container back again, all the blobs inside the containers will also come back again out here. So very important. The biggest difference between a shared access signature and an access key, again, a very frequently asked interview question is, what do you think is the difference between a shared access signature and access key out here? The primary difference is that shared access signature will help you share the keys or share the permission to your storage account in a controlled way. You can tell what kind of a permission that someone has. Is it read? Is it list? Is it whatever? What is it? And also you can control what is the time basically that someone has access to your storage account. But access keys do not do that. Access keys are like administration keys. They go ahead, give unlimited privilege or unlimited permissions on your storage account out here. So if you go here, I said show the key and share this key across with someone. Just in case if you feel that the key has been misplaced, meaning you gave the key to someone who shouldn't have access to your storage account, there is also an option called rotate key. See, rotate keys will do one thing, it will regenerate the existing keys out here, which means if I click on this one, it's telling regenerate access key, the current key will become immediately invalid and it is not recoverable. If you generate a new one, the new key or the old key that someone is using, all those people who are using the old key will lose the access. So I'll say yes. As and when I do that, I just come back into my storage account. I'll say go into the container and I'll try to, let's say, do something like this. I'll say yes. Again, I'm using the access key out here. It should have given me the access out here. It's telling queue for deletion and all that stuff. It'll try deleting, but its deletion is invalid. Again, if I just refresh this out, authentication error. It says authentication error and so on and so forth. So why is this error coming up right now? We rotated the key. So using the old key, I won't be able to connect with this particular storage account. What about the SAS? Will it still work? I'm connected to the same storage account using a SAS. Will it still work? Let's see that. Let's refresh. Same error. SAS is nothing but it's a key that is generated from the access key. That's it. SAS is based on the access keys, but it will give you a control privilege. So when you rotate a key, all the SAS tokens, all the access keys, everything will be invalidated. So you'll have to reshare your keys or reshare the shared access signatures out there. Again, you can generate a shared access signature any number of times. There is no limit. You can go ahead generate it out any number of times out here. But very importantly, when you rotate a key, everyone who's using the key and also the shared access signature that was shared from this particular key, both are going to be invalidated. So no one is going to have the access to your storage account as such out here. Yes, any questions that I can take till here? Let's take a quick pause. Any questions that I can take till here? Why two keys? Just in case. Again, you have a bike. Do you have a bike? You get two keys out there, right? If you lose one, you'll have a spare. Same concept out here. The point is that the main point here is that, let's say that you have a storage account, and this storage account is being used by an application called IRCTC. Meaning, when you click on IRCTC, it's going to the storage account getting the data. So I have a front end application called IRCTC out here. Now, this IRCTC also is just like a human being, just like you and me. But instead of you coming, putting your, let's say, key and accessing the data, storage account inside the code, the developer, what they do is that inside the code, they embed this particular key, meaning they take the key from you. Inside they say, okay, fine, key is equal to something like this. So whenever the application loads, it'll go into the storage account. Using that key, it'll access that particular storage account, get the data. So this particular storage account or this particular, let's say, application will have the key or shared access signature, whatever it is that you give, it will have this one. You have a user on the other side who's the actual human being who's, let's say, connecting to your storage account using a key, and even the IRCTC application will connect to the same storage account using the key out here. Now, in cases of rotation, just we saw that if you rotate a key, all the users who are using the key will lose their access. This is okay with me. See, I'm when I say users who are using my storage account, they're nothing but my organization developers, testers, and all these things. They are using the storage account. This is okay. But will the IRCTC application also lose its access because it's using the same key? It's using the same key. It will lose its access. Very simple. If you as a user try to access this application, which is using in the old key, the application will come back and throw you an error telling authentication error. I'm not able to, let's say, go and get that particular file for you and all those things. This is something that I want to avoid, because user not having the key, I am okay with that. I'll take some time, give it back to the user and etc. But application not having the key, this will cause an issue with my business. It will, let's say, give a loss to my business. So that's the reason we normally share the key one to the users. Key 2 will be there in the application, so that even if you rotate the key 1, key 2 will not be impacted, application will still be running. That's the reason you will have two different keys out here, one for your developers, testers, and etc., the other for your application, so that you don't have to rotate it very frequently and you can secure your application in the same way out there as such. That's the reason if you go into the storage account out here, it's telling rotate key and rotate key out here. So you have two rotate keys out here as such, which means that you have the option to rotate here and rotate here as well. This is something that we don't frequently rotate because the application is using it. This is something that we can frequently rotate because users are using it out here as such. Yes, any more questions here? Hmm. Yeah, there is no restriction. Any of the keys is okay. So if you give key 2 to the user, then give key 1 to the application. If you are giving key 1 to the user, give key 2 to the application, something like that. Yes, any more questions here? So again, very importantly, this is a very frequently asked interview question whenever someone kind of takes interviews on storage accounts, right? One thing they ask is about the redundancy, LRS, GRS, ZRS, and everything. The other thing they ask is this one, which is access keys and shared access signatures. And what if I want to rotate the key? How will I rotate the key and all these things? So what is the strategy that you follow on that thing? All right. Having that said, let's go into the containers. Let's go here, and in the containers, I have blobs, and there is something called as access tier. What exactly it is and how many are the access tiers that Azure really offers right now? What are the different access tiers? That is the access types. How do you authorize the storage account? I'm telling what are the different
hot
access
and
tiers
cool,
that you have? Hot and cool.
hot and cold.
Hot and cool. You have hot and cool as the archive. Yes, good question, good point. I'll also come down to what archive is. So hot and cool, again, as we were telling, just to recap things out, if you store the data in hot, the cost to access the data, when I'm saying access the data, it's read or write. I'll just categorize this as a transaction. So read or write just comes or just is categorized as something known as a transaction. So the cost per a transaction, meaning the cost per a read or write operation is less, but the
Store
cost per
storage
storage
is high.
or per GB of storage is more. Meaning if I just go back into our Azure pricing calculator, let's put a storage account in place and let's check this out. All right, so let's see. All right, so this is ECS2 and earlier we had this one. I'll just delete this out. Just delete. Oh, okay, fine. Let me add this out once again. Let's scroll down. Yes, and let's scroll down all the way. Put this to India and let's come back again. Okay, so if I have a storage account in ECS2 and if this storage account is standard, if it's a general purpose V2 storage account, it's in hot, it's LRS, the cost per a GB of storage. Now for 1000 GB, I'm being costed around 1470. If it is 5000 GB, around 7000 rupees of cost what I get, meaning per a GB, the cost is 1.47 rupees. This is the approximate. Let's put the same thing in cool. It's almost half, meaning if you put this as 5000, 3009, almost 4000 rupees, which is half the price what it is compared to, let's say, storing the data in hot. So now Microsoft is telling, okay, fine, you get to decide what kind of a data you have. Is it frequently accessed data? Is it infrequently accessed data out here just for storage and etc.? So hot and cool. Now I am a user. Let's say all this data that you see uh, is for a organization called Deccan Chronicle, a very famous newspaper company. So what Deccan Chronicle is doing is, let's put this as DC Deccan Chronicle out here. Deccan Chronicle has created a container called test container, and they are storing all their data blobs. Now when I say data, let's say it is the daily newspaper. Okay, to let's say make things very simple. So you as a user, if you are going into the Deccan Chronicle website, that particular Deccan Chronicle application will just go into the backend storage account, go into, let's say, that particular container, get that particular newspaper, give it to you. Okay, this is what is normally happening. So I am a backend administrator. I'm writing some kind of a program which goes ahead, takes the daily PDF newspapers and dumps it out inside this particular storage container so that the application will give you the same thing out here. This is what I'm doing. So let's see. So every day you will have a blob in the form of a PDF file or in the form of a Word document, whatever it is. Every day you'll have, every day you'll keep having a blob out here. Now my question or the Deccan Chronicle is now asking Microsoft is that, you know what, I'm storing all this data, great. Over a period of time, let's say a year, I will have around 365 newspapers out here, meaning 365 blobs out here. Let's consider that each and every blob is occupying around 10 MB because it's a huge file out here. It's a 10, 20 MB and etc. Now Microsoft is sorry, my now Deccan Chronicle is asking is that okay, fine, how do I reduce this cost? So the question that Microsoft is asking is that okay, fine, the newspaper that you stored 1 year ago, are people coming to your website and still requesting for that particular newspaper? Very unlikely. You, I mean, until and unless you are into, let's say, investigation and all these things out, you won't go back 1 year and look at that particular newspaper cutting and all that stuff. So Deccan Chronicle is telling, okay, fine, 1 year ago, probably not. 6 months, even less. The user trend, Deccan Chronicle is now telling is that the user trend is that the newspaper on any given month between 1 to 30, meaning 1st to 30th, newspapers are very, very frequently accessed. After the 30th, meaning if a month is over, that older month newspaper people are not really looking at. So, which means that 30 blobs in a given month are being frequently accessed. After that, the data is infrequently being accessed out here. Let's say that this is the blob that was stored a month ago. Let's imagine that it is not 29 or it is not 29th of August. Let's imagine it's 29th of July that this was stored. 1 month is over. I don't want this piece of data to be sitting anymore in hot, because if I'm putting this in hot, I'm paying for that cost, additional cost out here. So I'll say, okay, fine. Let me click on this one. On one particular blob, there's an option called change tier. Again, you have hot. I can put this in cool. I'll say save this out here. So now do you see all the blobs are sitting in hot, but only this blob is sitting in cool. Every day, I as an administrator, I will have to come here, see which blob is older than 30 days, which blob is greater than, or which blob last modified date is greater than 30 days. I'll come here, change this to, let's say, something like cool. Now I'm telling Microsoft that, okay, fine, I am now changing each and every blob out here depending upon what is the date on it. Here in my case, I have the same date, but in the case of an organization, this is today's newspaper, let's say, and tomorrow you will have a different date again. So I'm calculating this life cycle of a blob after 30 days out here. So today, if I put it to the next month, I'll come the same date. I'll change this to cool. This is what I need to do. But imagine if I have to do this every day when I'm working for this organization. The very first thing that I need to do is come here, go to this particular date, change it into cool, and then come here again. Imagine that Deccan Chronicle has put about 10 years of newspaper here. 1 year is around 365 blobs out here. If it's 10 years, it's 365 into 10, 3650 newspapers out here. Now my task is to go ahead, identify all the blobs which are greater than, put them into cool. Identify everything which I don't want deleted out. So my point here is that, see, manually coming here and converting this into cool is very difficult. Administrative, it's an administrative challenge out here. Also, one more thing that you need to observe here is that this. Now, if you click on a blob, you have the change tier option. You can come here, say hot to cool. But if I click on all the blobs out here, it's disabled. Meaning you cannot manually come here, click on all these things and change the tier at once. You cannot do that. Even if you were able to do that, you will have to select thousands of blobs in one go, say change tier, and you also have to, let's say, look at the date. For each and every blob, you have to say, okay, fine, this is the date, this is the date, okay, fine, it's greater than 30, greater than 30, and then you'll have to go. Which means it's manually very much impossible if there are thousands and thousands of blobs out here. Also, there is a lot of scope for error, meaning you're a human being at the end of the day. You can come here, see that it is 8, you might think it is 7, you might put it into cool, your application will be down. So this might be the issue out here. So the very first challenge is that particular administrative burden. So I'll put the challenges out here. Is administrative challenge or administrative burden, because I cannot possibly go into each and every blob, change its life cycle from hot to cool, and then or cool to I want to delete it out or something like that. It's very difficult for me to do that. Also, so that's one of the challenge out here. Second thing is that let's come here. I put this in cool. There is one more tier called archive. Let's understand this. The date, if it's in cool, the cost is what? Almost 4,000 rupees, I could say. So this is cool. 5,000 GB of data. You have around 4,000 or 4,000 rupees of cost. Let's put the same thing in archive. I'm not changing any other parameters like my location or tiers and all these things. Let's put this in. Almost four times the amount got reduced. This is actually nothing for an organization. 800 rupees per month to store their data. which is 5000 GB, is actually nothing out here, which means that archive is an option to store your data at a very, very low cost. Store your data at a very, very low cost. Then the question can be, then what is the biggest difference between cool and archive? Even cool you're storing it, even archive you're storing it. Yes, there is a very big difference. Exactly. In cool, you can access the data, which means that if I click on this, I'll just put this in a container level access so that I do not have to generate the SAS again and again. So I change this out. So in a cool, if I click on this one, I take the URL of it. Still able to access the data, which means that you are a user. You can still go back after 30 days and get the data, not a problem. That is not a problem at all. But if you put the data in archive tier, click on this, change tier, and put this into something called as archive. Now it's telling, see, setting the access tier to archive will make your blob inaccessible until it is rehydrated back to cool or hot, meaning until you come here and change the tier again to cool or hot, until then you won't be able to access the data. I'll say okay, I'm good with that. I'll save this out, and now the data is in an archive tier. Let's go back, let's refresh the screen again. It's loading from my cache. So this is the browser cache that is coming into picture. So I'll put an incognito window saying the operation is not permitted on a archived blob. So you cannot read, you cannot write on an archive blob. Archive blobs are just there to go ahead and store your data. Example, let's say this application is not DC, this is application is ICICI. You have daily transaction, let's say reports. Let's say ICICI decides that after 2 years, all the data that is older than 2 years will sit in archive. Simply go to a bank, ask them that, you know what, I need my transaction reports for a year called 2012. Say yes, I'll give you. But give me 24 hours of time. I cannot give you directly. This data is not available with me directly. Also, if you want 10 years old data, this 2022, I'm talking about 2012. If I want that particular data to be available, you'll have to pay a cost. It's not for free. I cannot give it to you for free, because what Microsoft will do, what ICICI will do in the background is that they'll come here, they'll identify your data, they'll say archive. Okay, fine, this is the data we want. Let's change that here and firstly put it into hot. And now there is something called as a rehydration priority. Depending upon how soon you want, whether it is standard or high, also depends upon the size of the data that you're, let's say, rehydrating. I'll say high and put this out. I'll just put a standard. I'll say save. Whenever you rehydrate, there is a cost that you need to pay. Depending upon the size of the data out here that you're requesting for, there's a cost. That's the same cost what ICICI is charging from you. It's taking the same cost as a service charge, paying it out to the cloud provider, and then retrieving the data. It will take some time. The data will not be available readily. It will take some time, and then they go ahead and give you the data out there as such. That's the reason you go to any banking application. The maximum you can go for is 1 year. You can go 1 year back and get the data and all that stuff. Beyond that, you will have to go to a branch, request for it. Reason being, a backend administrator should come inside that particular storage account, make the data available, and then give the data back again. Reason being, you need to pay this particular cost out here. Usually, blobs are moved into an archive tier after a good amount of period, at least 180 days or something like that. 6 months, at least 6 months, and then I'll move that, let's say, data into a archive tier out here. And when you store it in an archive tier, the price is dead cheap. You are actually not paying anything out here. But if you want to rehydrate it back, yes, there's a cost associated with the same thing out there as such. Yes, any questions still here? Are there any automation? Yes, good point. Yes, I'm coming to that. Is there any automation to change cool to hot, hot to archive automatically? let's say my organization norms are something like this. The organization is telling me that initially in the first 30 days, blob should be in hot. First 30, I want the blob to be in hot. 30 to 180 days, blob should be in cool. After 180, it should be in archive. Let's say after 365, I want it to be deleted. Can I put something like this? Definitely yes. For which, come back to your storage account. There is something called as life cycle management. Life cycle here just means, do you want the blob in cool or hot or archive, what it is. Let's go there. What it tells you is that lifecycle management offers a rich rule set, meaning you can define rules telling that you want your blob in hot or cool, or let's say something like this. Again, this is a storage account that I configured in hot. So whenever you upload the data, blobs will directly come and sit in something known as a hot out here. So I'll say, okay, fine, add a rule. And here it's telling enter a name of a rule. The rule can be anything, but put it logical. For example, I want to move data into cool after 30 days. So I'll say cool 30 days, something like this. You can put any rule name out here. It's telling, okay, rule scope. I'll say apply rule to all the blobs in your storage account. I'll say next. Now it's telling if the date modified is more than 30 days, then it's telling me, do you want to delete the blob? I'll say, you know what, don't delete it. Move to cool. I'll add one more condition. If the date modified is greater than 180 days, because the second is this one, 30 to 180 cool. Anything above 180 is what? Archive. It's saying, okay, fine, archive. I'll check this out and I'll say, please move it to archive storage. If it is more than 365, delete the blob. I'll say add. Now I have a rule which is now telling me that if the blob hasn't been modified in 30 days, move it to cool. If the blob hasn't been modified in 180 days, move it to archive. If the blob hasn't been modified in 365, delete it out. Same thing what my organization is telling me. They told it to me in words. I implemented in, let's say, in this particular rule set out here. Now, this rule to be implemented take around, whenever you create a rule, it will take around 48 hours for the rule to come into action. Meaning, I implemented the rule today. The rule will come into effect from the 1st of September. From the 1st of September, it will identify all the blob data. That is a period more than 30. Move it to cool. If it's more than 180, move it to archive. If it's more than 365, delete it out. This is how it will start working. Yes. How to add this rule to container? Good question, good point. Is that I only want to apply this rule to a specific container, not all the blobs in all the containers out here. What I did right now is that I applied this rule will apply to all the blobs in all the containers out here. Let's say I want to restrict that. I'll say add a rule. I'll say container rule. Now do you see apply rule to all the blobs in your storage account? It's now telling limit blob with filters. I can say okay, fine, great. I'll say next. I can give all my conditions same way. I can say 30, 60 and all these things. For now, let's say I give just one rule called 365. Delete the blob. I'll say next. Now it's telling enter a prefix. You can give something like my container forward slash the name of the blob. I'll say this is a test container. That's it. I'll tell you please apply this to something known as a test container. I'll say add. Now I am applying the rule only to a specific container out here as such. Yes, any more questions here? Mhm, mhm. Can you do same practice in container level? No, you cannot. There isn't an option called lifecycle management at a container level. You can only apply it at a storage account level. But when you are applying at a storage account level, you can say what container you want to apply it. It will apply to it. Can you change the time? Yes, you can change it. You can change it at any point in time, not a problem. You can come here into the lifecycle management. Let's see where lifecycle management is. You can come into the lifecycle management. You can update your rule at any point. You can update the rule at any point. You can change this to, let's say, something like 720. Update this out. You can update the rule at any point in time, not a problem. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone? Any more questions out here? Mhm. As in, like, can you come again with your question, please? Okay. 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 Only that data that the person has deleted. Again, you cannot filter out the data that someone has deleted. But as I was telling yesterday, you will be able to filter out data. If you have a storage explorer, you will be able to filter out all the data deleted by a particular day with the person name. No, with the time, yes. Yes, with the time, yes. With the specific date, with a specific time, you can say what are all the data that is deleted, and you can retrieve the data back again. That is something that you can do. But with the ID, I don't think you'll be able to do that. Who's deleted what and etc. For which you will have to go into your identity. Sorry, you will have to go into something called as the activity log. Identify who's deleted what from the activity log, and then you can go ahead and, let's say, do this. For example, I did all these things out here. I generated, I did all these things. So you can query this activity log and you can understand what exactly or who exactly did what and etc. Yes. Any more questions out here? Anyone? Any questions out here? So we are looking at concepts like, so we started off with storage accounts. We said then containers. We then said blobs. We said SAS, access keys. Then we are looking into something like storage explorer. Then we are looking into something called lifecycle management. And very importantly, just go ahead, do a quick revision of all these things. These are the most asked areas, most important areas out here. Also, I will share a link. Let's go into my Azure DevOps portal. If it loads, let me go ahead share a link with you all real quick, which kind of gives you the interview questions that someone can ask from a storage account out here. So we have interview questions out here, depending upon a lot of interviews out here. We Okay, I'll just share this link across in this chat window out here. So my request for guys online is that can you please take this link and share it in the WhatsApp group, because I'm not a part of the WhatsApp group. So please take this link, share it on the WhatsApp group. You don't need any kind of a permission. Just click on this link. You'll directly come here. You can start reading all these questions, and also just don't read the questions. Just below the question, I also have given the links to the Microsoft documentation. For additional information, also come here, understand what is a naming convention and all these things out here as such. Yes, any more questions here? Anyone, any questions that I can take? Mhm. full privilege. If you give an access key to someone, with the permission of access key, will you be able to provide SaaS? Yes, you will be. You will be able to provide SaaS. Very simple. He won't even be looking to provide SaaS. He'll simply take the key he has and give it to someone else. Still work. Keys has nothing to do with the user access. It will bypass all the permissions and go to your storage account.
Good morning, Abhishek.
Good, please.
Hello. What is
Uh,
difference between blob and blob data?
I'm sorry. Can you come again, please?
What is difference between blob and blob data?
Blob and sorry,
Blob data.
blob data. You're talking about?
Yes.
Your voice is not clear. You're telling what is the difference between blob and blob data? Is that what I got?
Yes.
Both are the same
Yes. Yes.
data. It's just data. That's it. There's actually nothing that there's actually nothing called blob data as such. Both are the same. It's just
Mhm.
some data out there that you're storing out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions here, guys? All right, so that's it from mine today. Then please revise this out and let me know if there are any questions. Okay. Thank you and have a good day ahead. And we'll meet tomorrow. Thanks, guys.